This is our DPT shoulder flexibility flow. So what we're talking about for shoulder flexibility for the most part is going to be an overhead flexibility, because this is where most people get stuck. So we want to show you how to test it, and then a simple sequence to move through with simple equipment to restore that overhead ability. So first, let's test. So come on over to the wall, and I'll have you do this as well. I'm going to have you sit down, and you can sit cross-legged if that's comfortable for you, with your butt all the way against the wall. Get your head against the wall, back against the wall, arms out straight, and we're going to lift all the way up. And here's the deal. You need this overhead mobility if you cannot get your thumb to the wall with your elbows straight. So as you can see, neither side works. If I just do one, I can kind of cheat, but if I do both sides, I really can't cheat and there's nowhere to go. And for me to have a good overhead mobility to do any kind of overhead pressing, hanging, I really want to make sure that both thumbs are touching the wall as they're tucked in like this. So that is our test. We will now get into the flow of what we're going to do. We need three things, so take a second and gather. We need a 1 inch or 1 1/8 inch super band. We need a lacrosse ball or tennis ball and a PVC pipe. So we're going to start with that lacrosse ball. We're always going to work on loosening up the tissue around the shoulder girdle first. We will then do some stretch with some contract relax. We'll do some positional work, and then we'll finish with a PVC flow to encourage that shoulder mobility that we're just trying to get. So let's start with the lacrosse ball, and we're going to start in the pec. So I don't want to get on the front of that shoulder, but I do want to work on the tissue around the shoulder. So we'll go here, and we'll go here. We're going to start here right now. You can do this against the rig, you can do this against a doorway, you can do this against a wall. We're going to take that ball and we're going to put it kind of on the meat of that pec, not on the front of the shoulder. I'm going to lean into it just a little bit just so that it tacks it in place. And then I'm going to take that arm and I'm going to move it back and forth, kind of like I'm rowing. And so there's a technique called tack and stretch. And so this should do something similar to that, where it's holding that tissue down and giving me a little bit of mobility through a range that I want to then use. So I can kind of go through here. I can do kind of a angel arm, but about 30 seconds to a minute through here is going to be what I want. And we'll do that on each side. Nothing should be painful. I can also work just underneath this clavicle here, not on top of the clavicle. And again, not on the front of the shoulder, because that just doesn't feel good. But you might find trigger points through that whole spot. We're going to go ahead and do the other side as well, just so you can see it from a different angle. Lean into it, tack it, start moving that arm back and forth. Again, I'm going to move it around a little bit, underneath that clavicle a little bit more. And you might feel a difference on side to side, and that's great. That's what we want. Again, let's go about 30 seconds to a minute on each side. Next, so we got the front. Now we're going to go for this back side of the shoulder. So we're going to come down on the ground. I'm going to take that ball, and I'm going to go ahead and put it right behind my armpit, kind of on the back side of the shoulder. And I'm going to start by leaning, rolling over onto it just a little bit. And then I'm just going to do this little windshield wiper. And as I do this, I'm going to go about 10 times here, nice and slow. It should just feel like it's massaging the back side of that shoulder. Should be comfortable, shouldn't be super painful. If it doesn't feel like it's doing much, I can move it around and find another spot. So that's a little bit more tender. Tender is not necessarily bad, it just tells me that those muscles are maybe a little tight, a little sensitive back there. But again, I'm not holding my breath, this isn't super painful, this is pretty comfortable. 30 seconds or so there. I'm going to take this now, I'm going to bring it up and overhead, same thing, just behind my armpit. And I can kind of get it on that lat there. And I can turn that palm down, which rotates my arm. And then I'm going to turn that palm up. And what we're trying to do is work on those tissues that connect my shoulder blade to my upper arm. I'm just going to go down and go up. Same thing, I'll go about 10 times here. And then we'll do it on the other side. And again, if that isn't the spot that you think that it should be, you can go ahead and move it, see what it feels like, hunt around back there a little bit, and then we will go to the other side. So same thing, back side of that shoulder. Have that elbow out about 90 degrees from my shoulder, and then just windshield wiper. And we'll go about 10 reps on this side. I want you guys to follow along with me here. And again, you might find that one side's a little bit more tender than the other, and that's fine. Maybe that's a symptomatic side, maybe that's an old injury side, maybe it's your strong side, maybe it's your weak side, doesn't really matter. Just notate that it's different. Good, and then same thing, we're gonna take that up and overhead. So same, we'll keep it back behind that armpit, we'll bring that arm up and over, might turn it down a little bit to see if I can find that lat as it comes up. That feels like the spot, and the same thing, palm up and palm down, we'll go for 10 of those. And again, none of this should be super painful. It should feel therapeutically appropriate. A lot of these muscles get overworked when the shoulder's not working quite right. So to optimize everything, we want to make sure that we're loosening up the right muscles, and then we can train them using this new range of motion. Great, okay, so I got 10 there. Last but not least, we're gonna work behind the shoulder. So what that usually means is, in this spot between the shoulder blade and the neck, there's that little spot. What I'll usually say is, imagine like somebody's gonna come up behind you and put their hands on your shoulders and rub your shoulders. It's that spot that everyone always goes, ah, that feels good. That's where I want it. So let's go ahead and have you put that right back in that spot. I'm gonna target my right hand, so take that left hand, put it behind your head, give your head kind of a nice pillow to lay on, and then we're just going to take that arm and go up and down. And the nice thing here is the weight of my arm is gonna mobilize those upper ribs and that soft tissue for me. So I'm in control. If it was terrible here, just go ahead and stop. But if it feels good, you can let it come all the way down. And again, we're gonna go for 10 here. Eight, 9, one more, and 10. Great, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. So I'll take that, put it on my left shoulder blade, between my shoulder blade and my neck. I'll make a little pillow out of my right fist. That left hand will do the same thing, and let it come all the way over. And let's try 10 on that side. And so again, now if I've now worked the soft tissue through the pec, through the back side of the shoulder, and then through the shoulder blade, that's the 3 main areas that are going to be restrictive to that shoulder blade movement. Oftentimes, the shoulder blade is restricted or not working very well, so it exploits the shoulder joint, and that's where our rotator cuff gets a little beat up. So we don't want that to happen. So let's loosen up everything around it. Great, so 10 times on each side, and that's it for the lacrosse ball. All right, so next, now that hopefully we have a little bit better motion going up here, at least it's a little unglued, let's stretch this stuff out a little bit more. This is where we take our 1 1/8 inch band. You can throw it up and over a pull-up bar if you have access to one. Go ahead and make sure it's nice and secure. I'm gonna take my hand, I'm gonna loop it through, and I'm gonna step back. And then from here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that same side leg, I'm gonna kind of kick it back and behind me. And so I'm gonna get this big stretch up and along through this lat here, and I'm gonna turn that shoulder, or that thumb up. I'm just gonna externally rotate that shoulder, it's gonna tug on that lat a little bit more. And then I'm gonna keep reaching up towards that anchor band, and I'm also going to try to dive my head and chest through. And as I'm reaching, I'm getting a big stretch. Next, I'm gonna take this and kind of pull my shoulder blade back down towards my pocket, and then pull and get a little bit of a contraction through that lat. And then I'm gonna reach and see if I can get a little stronger stretch. We're gonna do 5 of those. So here's number 2. Pause for a second. And then there's 2. 3, and each time you can go just a little bit further. 4, and 5. Okay, we'll switch sides. So same thing, I'll take that left hand, put it through, step back, get a little tension on it, take that same side leg, go back and across, turn that thumb up and really reach towards that anchor point. Feel that stretch along that left side now. And then from here, I'm just going to take that shoulder blade, pull it down towards my back pocket, bend and load that lat a little bit, and then reach up towards that banded anchor again. That's 1. 2. 3. This should be a nice stretch, but it shouldn't be painful. If this is painful in your shoulder, then we need to come up with something else. Or you can just skip this one. 4. One more. And 5. Okay. So, again, nice stretch through here. That whole shoulder girdle is moving a little bit better. We got 2 things left. So I can take this band and put it down. If you have access to a pull-up bar, this is what I want you to try. I don't want it to be too high, so I want you to be able to start this so that your feet are still on the ground, or you can use a box. But we're gonna go double overhand grip, and what I want you to try to do is, standing here, I'm going to take my ribs and pull them down, and as I do that, I'm lengthening across that whole side and trying to get my arm more in line with my torso. A lot of times with that overhead mobility being stuck, we'll couple these movements, so we flare the ribs as that arm goes overhead, so we want to take it the other way. So if I just reach up, grab, and be on my tippy toes, I'm going to pull my rib cage down and get a big stretch through my lats and my pecs. Pause here and just breathe. As I'm breathing, I'm thinking about breathing into my belly, so I'm not changing my position here. I'm just holding this position, and I'm breathing into my belly. If that's okay and you're pretty good at this, you can even go into a hollow hang position. So where you actually kind of keep that posterior pelvic tilt, pull those ribs down, get those toes forward, is totally fine. And as you're holding, I'm not pulling, I'm just hanging, but I'm trying to get a big stretch through those lats. I can even do it where I have a mixed grip, so one hand forward, one hand backwards or underhand, and see if I get a bigger stretch that way. Same thing, maybe try to hold for like 5 to 10 breaths. Same thing, kind of switch over here. You might find that one side is just a little stiffer than the other, but what that's going to do is it's going to really wrap that lat is trying to pull us here. So we want to go here and go in that opposite direction, unlock as much of that as humanly possible. Okay, last part. It's our PVC series. So you're going to follow me through this. This is last little bit, then we'll retest on that wall and see if we made a difference. So PVC broomstick works just fine too. We're going to start with our flagpole. You're going to put one hand on the top. You're going to step back. You're going to punch your arms through, stick your butt away from it, and see if you can get your head through. And we're just going to sit here, and we're going to breathe 5 times into our belly. 2. 3, and the whole time I'm trying to press away so that stick is trying to get as far away from me as possible. 4, 5. Okay, next, switch hands. Right hand will go down, left hand will go on top. Sounds silly, but it does make a difference. Press out, butt back, 5 breaths. 4 and 5. Great. Okay, now we have, again, this grip on this PVC. We're going to go nice and wide. We're going to do 5 around the worlds. Looks like that, keeping those elbows nice and straight. We're getting some shoulder blade motion as we're rolling around. Which again, we've unlocked those shoulder blades for the last 10 minutes or so. So now we want to start using them a little bit and making sure that they're not putting adverse stress on our shoulder joint and rotator cuff. So we'll go 5 of these in each direction. One more. Good, and then the last one's going to be a pass through. So holding stiff arm, going through, and coming back around. If it's too easy, you can walk your hands in a little bit. Big stretch. Let's go 5 of these. None of this should be painful. Five. All right. So that is a good shoulder mobility sequence. Lots of stretching, lots of things feeling like they're working, but I didn't have any shoulder pain. That is the goal. I don't want to increase any kind of shoulder pain. If that is the problem, then we have to really look at it a different way, try some different exercises. But assuming that it's just feeling some stretch, that's great. Let's see if it was effective. So let's get back down on the floor. This is a way that you can always, we test and then we retest. So sitting down on the floor, good. And I go back up and boom, now I can get against that wall. So that was a single video. So as you can see, it actually works.